a podcast conversation between Brene Brown and Adam Grant about finding your strong ground by
Lauren,
Paulina.
Vanessa.
Jerry. In this presentation, we will introduce a podcast conversation between Brenna Brown and Edma Grant about finding our strong ground. The podcast explores how people can stay emotional ground, manage stress, and build resilience in challenging situations. They explain the recognizing emotion is the first step to building resilience. Strong ground focus on finding stability and authenticity through value, driving leadership in uncertain times. Another key point is the importance of connection, support from others, such as friends, family, or colleagues, can help people feel less isolated and more secure. A meaningful idea from the podcast is that people can find their strong ground by focusing on what they can control and building emotional awareness. Before listening, we invite you to think about these questions. How to strengthen emotional resilience? What are the main stress in your life? What help you stay calm and emotional?
Okay, so now I'm going to be getting into the core ideas and basically what are the main ideas from the podcast. The main idea is that people and organizations need strong ground to lead well. Brown says this comes from learning to physically find the ground in training, and she applies that to she wants to be flexible, agile, and mobile but grounded. She describes strong ground as spiritual, cognitive, and emotional strength. This episode also says Brown and Grant explore how values clarify creates more meaning for individuals, teams, and organizations. Towards the end, Brown connects values to discipline, boundaries, and discomfort. She says courage and faith come together in choosing what she believes is right and choosing to be brave over being comfortable. She also uses the Buddhist idea of the near enemy, explaining that pity can masquerade as compassion. Then she goes on to say the near enemy of discipline is rigidity. When discipline stops fostering agility, reflection, and change, it becomes control. How have you taken into consideration DEIB, or better known as diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging? In this episode, Brown and Grant focus on values, clarity, behavior, accountability, and empathy. So the DEIB connection is that a workplace is more inclusive and creates more belonging when people are grounded in shared values, and those values shape how people actually treat one another. Brown even says an organization's strong ground is made up of well respected, seen, heard, believed, and well connected human beings. Brown and Grant critique of fear based leadership matters for BEIB too. Grant says many leaders confuse being demanding with being demeaning, and Brown says the meaning leadership is basically leadership through fear. A fear based culture makes it harder for people to speak up, participate honestly, and feel safe enough to belong. A clear example from the podcast episode is Brown's explanation of what courage looks like in her organization. She says courage is not about a word on a wall. It means we talk to people, we do not talk about people. We create meetings where people can speak. We do not hold meetings after meetings. This quote from Brene Brown empathizes and supports the notion of BEIB by showing how, in a work culture and professional environment, people can be open, non toxic, conversations about one another with respect as a top priority. Overall, it's promoting a culture of transparency, respect, and inclusion, where people are involved in conversations that affect them instead of being talked about or left out. This correlates with diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging as a whole.
Now I'll be talking about communication and relationship techniques. Brene Brown explains that values can be used as a communication and relationship tool. For example, she describes it how organizations operationalize values like courage through specific behaviors, such as talking to people directly instead of talking about them, creating meetings where everyone can speak, and avoiding meetings after meetings. This shows how values guide clear, honest, and respectful communication, helping to build stronger and more trusting relationships. As mentioned in another slide, Brene Brown and Adam Grant discuss how some leaders believe they need to be tough and demanding to create accountability, but this can create a line when it becomes demeaning and fear based. Instead, she suggests using coaching as a communication and relationship tool. For example, she compares leadership to a sports team, explaining that without a coach to guide and support players, the team would struggle. This shows that effective communication involves holding people accountable while also supporting and guiding them, which helps build stronger, more respectful relationships. Brene Brown suggests limiting your core values to two. In a study of over 100 high performing leaders with strong organizational cultures, she found that when asked, none chose more than one or two values. When asked if those were enough, they said yes. This shows that focusing on just a few core values helps people stay clear and make better decisions. Brown also explains that it is important not only to identify your values, but to live them through your actions every day. Identifying your core values can be used as a communication and relationship tool as it helps guide how you interact with others, communicate clearly, and build trust by staying consistent and respectful. Now I'll be talking about the connections to early childhood education. Brene Brown explains that values can be used as a communication and relationship tool by guiding behaviors such as speaking directly to others, creating space for everyone to have a voice, and avoiding indirect communication. In early childhood education, this connects to how educators communicate with children, families, and colleagues in open and respectful ways. For example, ECE's model honesty encourage children to express themselves and create inclusive environments where every child feels heard, which helps build trust and strong relationships. Brown and Grant also highlights that being overly demanding can become demeaning and fear-based, and instead promotes coaching as a more effective approach. This directly connects to early childhood educators who are expected to guide rather than control children. ECEs use a coaching style by supporting children through challenges, helping them understand expectations, and encouraging problem solving. This approach builds positive relationships and helps children feel supported while still learning accountability and appropriate behavior. Additionally, Brown suggests focusing on one or two core values and consistently living them through actions. For early childhood educators, this can guide how they communicate and build relationships every day. By staying consistent in values such as respect or kindness, educators create predictable and supportive environments. This consistently helps children feel safe, understand expectations, and develop trust, which is essential for healthy relationships and effective communication.
Right now, I'll be talking about the summary. In their conversation, Brene Brown and Adam Grant explore what it means to find your strong ground, which is the foundation of your values, beliefs, and identity. They argue that in a world full of uncertainty and pressure, people and leaders need a clear sense of what truly matters to them. A key idea is values clarity. Knowing your core values, usually one or two, and using them to guide decisions and actions. When people are grounded in their values, they experience more purpose, confidence, and direction, in both life and work. They also explain that a strong ground provides stability and connection, but at the same time allows for growth and change. In other words, being grounded doesn't mean being rigid. It means having a secure base from which you emphasize that good leaders don't rely on fear or control. Instead, they lead with courage, empathy, and accountability, turning values into real, observable actions in their teams and organizations. Thank you for listening.